All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Wellness Rock podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you guys this week, and we have a very special guest with us this week. This is Justin. He is the founder of Clovis and dedicated to helping people break free from diet culture, fitness myths, and the broken medical system. His mission is to empower others to heal their metabolisms and reclaim their health through nourishment, self-acceptance, and holistic well-being. With over 650,000 followers and thriving 12,000 member Clovis community, which is amazing, Justin is leading a revolution in health, showing people that true freedom comes from living authentically and rejecting toxic trends. So I'm so excited to have him on here. I know I haven't done like a health focused episode in a while, so I'm excited to really dive into some health wellness, especially with the new year being here and just a lot of toxicity on social media. So I'm excited to really dive into that. And I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit and we'll get to it.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to have this conversation. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just basically, I love the intro. I love bios and kind of explaining what I do, but I honestly think of myself as like an architect of freedom. Like ultimately what I'm trying to teach people and help them achieve is freedom. I think that the way that we view diet and fitness in America is like it's a prison cell. It's a 24/7, 365 obsession with like not being good enough, tracking things that don't matter like calories, and just like constantly putting yourself in this cycle of self-punishment that leads to yo-yo dieting and really decreases self-worth and self-love. So that's really the lens through which I view everything is like, how can I increase your self-love, and every aspect of your health and wellness will improve as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. While you hit on that, I mean, like, let's just dive into that real quick because so many people fixate on calories. And I was someone, I had to stop tracking my calories because it came so toxic to me. I almost developed an eating disorder. Like, I wouldn't even eat a grape without putting it in my app and like tracking the calorie and being like, oh my gosh, I'm like 40 calories over my limit. Dive into that and kind of explain what you focus on there and why it's important to really not track your calories.
Yeah, so calories can be useful, right? But calories are useful in a setting of like, for instance, like I work with professional MMA fighters that are like going to get in a cage and fight, and they have to lose 30 pounds in 2 weeks. And it's like, I'm going to know how many calories that person's taking in. But does it mean that the transformation I'm putting their body through is healthy? Absolutely not. It's terrible for them. It's terrible, right? So it's like this kind of rapid fat loss, the things that people are trying to do are working against metabolic health in service of just being skinnier, which carries a fundamental, I guess, assumption that losing fat is automatically healthy, which is not the case, right? I mean, that's part one. Part two is like, this is a stainless steel Yeti mug. If I burn this and we measure the energy produced, it has a caloric content. If you eat 1,000 calories of stainless steel, how do you think that's going to go for your metabolism, right? It's like, it's a ridiculous thing to track. So where we went wrong is really in the 1950s with the advent of hyperpalatable ultra-processed foods. We started feeding people things that are not food, right?
Yeah.
That's where everything went wrong. But it was easier for these marketing companies to put the blame on the humans and say, well, you're just eating too many calories. And if you just track these calories, you'll stay thin or whatever. We weren't looking at it through the lens through which I now teach, which I very simply put as food versus poison. That's it. If you're eating actual food, like species appropriate food that belongs in the human body, on a biological level, like food is only good for you in any amount. Calories kind of go out the window, again, unless you're trying to do something extreme. And then poison is only bad for you in any amount. So this, like, everything in moderation, we can eat poison as long as we're counting the amount of calories of the poison that we're eating, is like, it's just fundamentally flawed. It's completely illogical. And when we say things like calories in, calories out, like if you picture a car, right? And that car has a full gas tank, but the engine has no spark plugs, there is no energy. There's no energy in and there's no energy out. Like gasoline is potential energy. It's not actual energy. It needs a catalyst to become actual energy. So if there's a motor with no spark plugs, that car is not going to move. No energy is going to be created.
Right.
So instead of looking at like calories in, calories out as like energy in, energy out, it's actually potential energy in, energy out. And what
Mm,
dictates the amount of energy out is the health of your cells, or the entirety of what we call metabolism, which is all the processes that take food and turn it into energy. So what I try to do is help people see that if we're focusing on nutrients, like if the equation were nutrients in, energy out, everything would change. It'd
right.
be ridiculously different outcomes.
Yeah, that's really big. Especially, I mean, I can't even think of one person who actually eats just like the food that was created. And even the food that's created nowadays, you can't even like trust, honestly.
Mhm.
And then you can go down such a deep rabbit hole when you're like thinking about this. So how do you navigate that? How do you navigate like living in this world with all of these toxic foods? And I mean, even the strawberries on the shelves, you don't know what
Mhm.
they're being made with and stuff like that. Like, how do you keep yourself from going down a rabbit hole?
Yeah, I'm not good at keeping myself from going down rabbit holes. I have been down all the rabbit holes for about 20 years now. So just know anything you learn from me is based on 20 years of rabbit holing incessantly. So, but for myself, it's there's what I teach, and then there is like the way that I handle things in my life. And the thing that is the most upsetting to me, like when I do one-on-one private coaching and I'm helping people develop self-love and self-worth and like push against societal standards and escape diet, toxic culture and everything, toxic diet culture, there are like energy frequencies to the way that humans exist, right? There is a frequency of anger that is
Mm,
very useful for
right.
making big changes happen in people's lives. So when I start to tease apart the history of where hyperpalatable foods come from, the history of mainstream medicine, all these things, and I start to reveal the corruption around it, people get really angry. And then it's like, instead of like this, oh, I actually really want to eat this junk food. It's no fair. I can't eat junk food. You end up like angry. Like, why did this end up on store shelves? Why was this marketed to me? Why are people telling me to eat poison and then feeding me toxic pharmaceutical drugs to fix the problem caused by the toxic junk food that they sold me? Right.
Real.
And that place of anger is a good way to get change to happen in people.
Right.
And one of the fastest ways for me to really expose to people how angry they should be about this is we're dealing with such a catastrophic problem in our food environment that we are going to end up with a biological oligarchy, meaning the richest of the rich will always be able to have high quality food. The middle class and lower class people living below the poverty line, I don't want to use the word lower class, but just like lower income level, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to get impacted by this the most. Places like food
Right.
deserts, right? Because how I handle it in my life is I buy everything from local regenerative farms, which means my dozen eggs is $14. If I go to the
Um,
HEB and I get like the cheapest, dozen eggs, it's probably $3,
right.
right? So I'm spending what, more than 4 times more for a dozen eggs for me to get the highest quality.
Yeah.
And how do we expect most people to do that? It's
Right.
not like I'm very fortunate. I built a life for myself that I'm extremely grateful for, and like I love that. And for me personally, my health is my number one priority above everything else, no matter what. I have a baby on the way. That baby is only going to eat food from
Congrats.
regenerative local farms. Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
crazy excited about it. But
Yeah.
it's just this thing. Like I've built my life in a way in which I'm able to do that, which I'm very grateful for.
Right.
But then you have the situation of what can most people do?
Right.
So when I'm teaching that, I have my foods list, and anyone who wants the foods list can just DM me on Instagram at Justin Alt Official, and I'll send you the list for free. And I tell people like any dozen eggs is going to be better for you, even if it's the cheapest of the cheap dozen eggs. They're going to be better for you than Doritos and Pop Tarts, 100%. So
Yeah.
you just have to do the best you can within budget, within what's available to you. And then I tell the story of like, I was in the music industry before this, and I was doing 300 shows a year. So I was traveling nonstop, and I had to learn, like, even in the smallest little towns in the middle of nowhere with food deserts, there's like, I could go to Chick-fil-A, or I could walk into a Kroger or an Aldi or an HEB, and my lunch could be like, a chocolate sea salt RX bar and some Applegate deli meat from the deli and a banana and like a coconut water, right?
Right.
So it's just like where you put your focus and your intentionality. We have reached a place now, like for example, Walmart is the biggest carrier of organic produce in the entire world. So like the
Serious.
belief
I
that these
didn't
things
know
are not
that.
accessible, yeah, it's like I don't think people realize how available, health food is for
Yeah.
anyone, but you just have to know where to look and put your focus there. Like my
Right.
trip into Kroger or HEB might take 2 minutes longer than like sitting in a Chick-fil-A drive-through. It's
Right.
just making different choices.
Oh yeah. No, 100%. And I mean, it's out there, but kind of like you said, it's just, can people afford it? And that's I think that's a really big thing that people are struggling with, especially the past year or so, as prices have kind of skyrocketed and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's shift it a little bit. So let's talk about how you focus on, like, I know we've talked about food and kind of what it does for your body, but what is like the diet culture that you really hit on, and why is it so toxic to like, why do you think it's so toxic to focus on like that diet culture and mindset of like, oh yeah, it's a new year, I'm gonna jump into a diet. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Everybody is trying to white knuckle their way through a diet program for the shortest period of time so they can get back to living how they want to live. Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
like and they set themselves up for failure. So there are a few red flags that I watch for of like, if somebody is completely sedentary and most of their food is junk food and maybe they're eating 3,000 calories a day and they've been doing that for the last year or multiple years. And then January comes and they say, okay, starting Monday, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories and I'm going to be meal prepping and doing the whole thing. And this is like my new life, right? Like that is low self-worth. That is low self-love. And the reason for that is because they are purposely setting themselves up for failure. They played this game before. It's like a broken record. They've done it a zillion times.
Yeah.
So their ego will not allow them to meet themselves where they are. And they jump to perfection. And then they're a week in and they're sore or they're tired, or like Friday rolls around and their partner brings home Domino's or something. And then they eat Domino's pizza and they're like, well, screw it. I'm just going to be off the wagon for the next weekend and I'll start again on Monday, right? It's a constant self-sabotage behavioral pattern.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do with clients is help them understand that we have to get really honest and have a lot of self-awareness around where we're starting. So for some people, it may be making a commitment to themselves that they're going to drink more water, right? Like for the next 3 days, I'm going to start every morning with a glass of filtered water. I'm saying like that's the only change. It's the only thing you're going to change. And you're going to commit to 3 days. You're not going to commit to 30 days.
Right.
Because if you fail on day 6, you're going to tell yourself you're a failure and you suck and you can't do the thing, and the negative self-talk is going to come in. So the reason why I push so hard against diet and fitness culture is because the entirety of all the programming is convincing people that they are not good enough. It's a constant reminder that you're not good enough as you are. Your body doesn't look the way that it should. You're not beautiful by societal standards. And you're playing against diet and fitness culture now exists like everything else as social media. And social media is completely fake when it comes to body image.
Yeah.
Whether it's influencers who are on steroids, the ones I call them infertile six packs, right? There's like a zillion infertile six packs. These people look great in pictures and they're infertile and their hair is falling out and they feel tired all the time. Like they're just destroying their metabolism to look a certain way. And that's toxic comparison culture.
Yeah.
So if all you're seeing is these like super fake chiseled six pack abs that require liposuction plus anabolic steroids plus chronic caloric restriction, all these things that are really terrible for human health, it warps your brain. And you start thinking that is what healthy looks like. So unless I look like that, I'm not healthy. And because that's an unattainable goal, the brain decides, well, I'm already not healthy, so what's the point? I give up. And then it's more Doritos and Chick-fil-A and stopping at the drive-thru on the way home. It just erodes your self-worth in a way that makes it very challenging to succeed.
Yeah. I know you shared a little bit when we first met about the body dysmorphia that you faced. I know that so many people struggle with that, including myself. So how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah. That's why I can speak to this the way that I do, right? It's like I grew up in the 90s. So at the time, the now politically incorrect term was fat kid, right? Like I was a fat kid growing up.
Me
And
too.
I got teased, I got picked on. You were too?
I was, yes.
Oh, wow. It's brutal, right?
Yeah.
It's like from such a young age, you're just told that you're not good enough. Like I was watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, like the greatest physiques to ever exist in the history of man. And I'm comparing myself to that. So like by age 15, I was lifting weights 2 hours a day, just punishing myself and like running on a treadmill.
I I used to be called like fat strawberry, fat marshmallow in like elementary school and middle school. And then come high school, I think I was 15 or 16 when I started like my like diet.
Mm.
But I actually did change my mindset and create like a lifestyle from it, which has
Hmm.
kind of flowed from that. But I mean, you still struggle. I mean,
Totally.
it's still, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, same as you, right? Like I love fitness now, and I train
Mhm.
6 days a week, and I absolutely love it. I only do forms of fitness that I enjoy and forms of fitness that are good for me. I don't overtrain anymore,
Right.
but it led to me making really good lifestyle habits and eventually
Mhm.
building a good lifestyle. But I had such body dysmorphia and insecurity when I was a teenager, and then I got into the music industry. So I'm in Nashville. I'm playing 300 shows a year. I'm on stage 4 hours a night. Then I got a reality TV show on ABC when I was 25. Then I
Wow.
launched a YouTube channel. So it was like I had this tremendous body dysmorphia and literally was living under spotlights.
Yeah.
So it was just constant. Like the way my body looked never left my mind. Every
Wow.
morning waking up, seeing myself in the mirror was a problem, right? And I look back now, I'm 38 years old. And at the time, let's say I was 25 or whatever. I mean, I was 9% body fat at one point. I was just absolutely shredded.
Right.
And at the time, I thought I looked terrible. Like I look back at those pictures and I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. I was like absolutely shredded. But also, I remember at that time when I was 9% body fat, to speak to infertile six packs, I don't think I was infertile, but my testosterone dipped into the 250s, which is like
Wow.
that of a 75-year-old man. Because I was
Wow.
training 2 hours a day, I was constantly restricting calories. I was playing with the keto diet and carbohydrate restriction and intermittent fasting and just anything I could do to just be leaner. And that's really the problem that I have with diet culture today is like when women come to me, for example, and they say, I've tried everything. The only thing they've really tried is one thing with 1,000 different names. And that one
Mm.
thing is restriction.
Yeah.
Purposefully giving your body less than it needs to be optimally healthy with the goal of becoming smaller. It's not what health and wellness is built on, you know?
No.
So it took me a while. It wasn't really until I started to deeply study food versus poison, study human metabolism, understand that real metabolic health is actually the easiest way to figure out if you're metabolically healthy is like go have your fertility tested. If
Mm.
you're an incredibly fertile person, like your metabolic health is pretty good. Same way when I work with female MMA fighters, this is known in gymnastics and physique competitions and MMA fighting with women is most women who do these kind of extreme training, they lose their period. They get amenorrhea.
Yeah.
And none of my fighters ever got amenorrhea. And I
Wow.
prided myself on that, where I'm like, I can do this in a way that's not completely destroying their metabolism and their health. So it was really like the deeper I got into biology and biochemistry, I started understanding the trade-off that I was trading actual metabolic health for a certain aesthetic physique, right? And like
Mm.
9% body fat, I was 250 testosterone. I'm 38 years old today. I'm not on TRT or anything else. And
Right.
my natural testosterone is 850, but my body fat's probably 14, 15%.
Yeah.
So it's like I still have visible abs, but if I were to let my brain go crazy, I just need to get leaner and leaner. I have to sacrifice real health and wellness for that crazy aesthetic. And
Yeah.
once that clicked in my brain, it's easier for me. Like everything I do is through the lens of optimal metabolic health instead of just aesthetics. And
Mhm.
also the past 10 plus years of like the most challenging part of my journey of becoming the person that I am here with you today was my own self-love journey. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like
Yeah.
learning to truly love myself.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
How, like, for people who have kind of lived this restrictive lifestyle for so long, how long would you say that it takes for someone to like h- make their metabolism more healthier and see a change in like real health and wellness?
Oh, I mean, inside of 30 days, easy. I always tell people if I can take the focus off of the short term, like in a perfect world, everyone that comes to work with me would stay with me for 3 years.
Hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because I have many clients who have done that. Like I always tell a story of Joel, who's like very happy with me sharing his story. I have a lot of people who have come on my podcast to share their stories. Like Joel came to me wanting six pack abs, stayed with me for 3 years. We overhauled every single aspect of his life. He traveled the world. He learned new skills. I helped him launch his first business. He launched
That's
his first
awesome.
business and did 95,000 month one. Right? It's
That's
like there are levels
awesome.
to the game of if you
Right.
get the health and wellness correct, and understand all of the toxic diet culture, the toxic self-talk, all the things that are like holding you back, the false beliefs you have around health and wellness. If we build a healthy foundation, then you can look around in all the other areas of life and see, oh, my relationship was pretty toxic as well. And oh, I'm going 40 hours a week to a place that I hate where people don't treat me well. That's pretty toxic. Oh, all my friends, they just want to go to happy hour and get drunk and gossip and complain about their lives. That's pretty toxic. And you start to look around and reshape yourself as a human,
100%.
you know? But if all you're obsessed with all the time is like, what food are you eating? What workout are you doing? Like, it's actually like an avoidance pattern for all the other areas of life. So that was a longer answer than you wanted. But the answer with like, when you get results, to start seeing a change in your energy levels, to start feeling a change where your hunger signals actually come back, to start losing body fat, all these things happen within the first month.
That's
then
encouraging though for people listening who are like, okay, I've kind of lived this way my whole life. Like, how long is it going to take to see like results? Less than 30 days is really encouraging. Like, so.
Well, and I always tell people, I actually got this from an amazing coach here in Austin. His name's Jesse Elder, great guy. And he says 100, my programs work 100% of the time for 100% of the people who apply them 100%. Right. Yeah. So for me to say 30 days, I'm making the assumption, like, if you think about a movie, right, we have like the suspension of disbelief. If I'm sitting down to watch a horror movie, let's say, and I want the experience of a horror movie, I have to have suspension of disbelief. I need to check out a reality. I know this is make-believe, but I'm going to pretend it's real for 90 minutes, right? And that's what I'm asking people. If you come to a 90-day program, you need to wipe the slate clean of everything that you think you know about health and wellness. I am asking you to go all in on my philosophy, not just a nutrition plan. I'm asking you to go all in on my philosophy of health and wellness. And if you go all in, you are going to notice significant differences within the first 30 days. But if you're 95 days in and you're like, hey, I'm not seeing changes, this is why I have a weekly progress report. I'm like, okay, you've done the thing 10% over the last 90 days. Yeah. So don't tell a story that it doesn't work if you're not doing it.
Right. Yeah. And that goes with anything in life, I feel like. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how do you coach your clients on not just like the health and wellness piece, but more so like that mental, emotional, kind of more of that self-love and confidence aspect of it?
Yeah. So I layer personal development exercises into everything I do as daily non-negotiables, things that you are expected to do every day. And it's funny to witness, right? Because I'll have people that are 60 days in, and I have every single client get something called daily mirror work, where you're standing in front of a mirror by yourself in a bathroom, and you're looking yourself in the eyes and you're saying, I love you 10 times out loud. You are vocalizing this, you're speaking it, and you're saying, I love you, and you're trying your very best to mean it, right? And sometimes in the beginning, it's going to feel like fake it till you make it, right? Like, I've never done this before. Right. And I'll have people who are 60 days in that they've still gotten incredible results, and they're doing the foods list and they're hitting macros or whatever they need to do. And I'm checking in, I'm like, daily mirror work. How's daily mirror work going? How's daily mirror work going? And it is the biggest pushback I get on anything. People be like, well, if I'm honest with you, Justin, like, I tried it once and it felt really weird, and I didn't try it again. Or like, some women, their first time, they burst into tears. Yeah. You're just like heaving, crying in their bathroom. Like, I've never told myself that I love myself. You know, it's like the hard work, quote unquote, the challenging work is the internal work. It's understanding that if you've gotten to a place where your health and wellness is just a disaster, or you're dealing with chronic health issues, or the term, clinical obesity or something like that, you did get there by choices. Right. Which means that you got there due to low self-worth, low self-love. So if we circle back where you asked me what I do in my day-to-day, I love myself so much, I will not give myself anything but the very best when it comes to how I nourish my body. And if I didn't love myself the way that I do, I could make a lot of excuses as to why I need to buy food off the dollar menu because it's cheaper, like this kind of thing. It's like, no. I will do the best of the best for me, the same way I will give the best of the best to my child and my fiance. And you have to love yourself to make those choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. So, aside from like looking in the mirror and telling yourself you love yourself, what are some practical tips that you could give people listening to this to really start working on that self-confidence and self-worth to realize that it's okay for them to make a change
Mhm.
and it's okay for them to start with the little things, just like you said, like drinking that 3 glasses of water and
Mhm.
starting with the little things that it's okay and they can give themselves permission to start.
Mm. I love what you're speaking to here because I can feel sort of like some of the underlying things in what you're saying. And this happens to me a lot because most of my clientele are women and most of them are
Mhm,
moms.
mhm,
We really do have this thing in society where if we focus on ourselves, if we focus on doing things for ourselves and the betterment of our health and wellness and putting ourselves first, it's looked at as selfish.
yeah.
And there's a term I use for it that is mommy martyrdom, where all of these moms are like, sure, I would love to be healthy, but I have to drive the kids to every practice and I'm in the PTA and I'm taking them to church and I wake up every morning and I prepare their lunches and I do this thing. And it becomes this whole story about how they're living for other, which seems selfless.
Mhm,
I am here with a very controversial opinion to some people that is unbelievably selfish. And the reason for that is if you actually want to be selfless, you have to show up as the very best version of yourself for everyone that you come into contact with. If
yeah,
I'm low energy, if I'm depressed, if I'm anxious, if I'm not well nourished, if I'm in a bad mood, I can't show up for my fiance, which
right.
is why I meditate every morning, which is why I fuel myself properly, which is why I always make sure I have enough energy and I sleep well so I can show up for her, right?
Mhm,
And this is the term on an airplane. They'll put your oxygen mask on first before you try to help other people.
right,
Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody.
right.
And so many moms come to me on the brink of passing out where they cannot help anybody. And they're
Mhm,
snapping at their kids and they're getting in conflict with their partner and their sex life is down the drain and they're
yeah,
driving in traffic to a job that they hate. So on the way home, they're like, well, screw it. I'm just going to go through the Taco Bell drive through because I'm not making dinner. My family doesn't appreciate me anyway, right? It's this constant just, I mean,
yeah,
a lot of women are going to hear that and they're going to feel it in their bones because I've
mhm,
worked with thousands of people over 10 years.
yeah,
And it is the same story on repeat, like cookie cutter. This is
yeah,
the life that people have built for themselves. And I try to help them see if we can take even 90 days where you focus on yourself and we bring you back, right? They've lost themselves. They've lost
yeah,
themselves to other people. They don't know how to set healthy boundaries,
right.
right? So they're constantly self betraying with this idea that they're living in service of others. And what they don't realize is like, listen, I know you love your partner and I know you love your kids, but if you live that mommy martyrdom lifestyle, it's a number of years before you are secretly resenting all of them. You
Yeah,
resent your kids, you resent your husband. And no matter what you do, you can't break out of that because it's a natural thing because you feel like they're sucking everything from you, which
mhm,
is why we also work on how to communicate with your partner, how to set healthy boundaries.
wow,
I have an exercise called How to Stop Hiding. This is a fun one. I have people journal for about 2 weeks daily, just going over their day. And you're going to write down every single time that you lied.
wow,
And lying includes withholding. Every
mm,
single time you wanted to say something to your partner, but you didn't. Every single time you agreed to do something, somebody asked you for a favor and you said yes when you didn't really have the bandwidth to do it because you were afraid to say yes and you don't know how to set boundaries, we're going to write
mm,
that down. If you had a
wow,
terrible morning full of conflict and you were crying and then you're ordering a Starbucks latte and the barista says, "How you doing today?" And you go, "I'm doing great." That's a
mm,
lie. Write it down, right? So we have to get people
wow,
to understand they're hiding all the time with this idea that they're doing for other and that that's somehow selfless. It's a very, very selfish way to live and people don't realize
yeah.
that.
Wow, that's so interesting. God's been like really convicting my heart of like the little lies that I tell sometimes of like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I was late for work because my dog didn't want to get off the couch. But more so like I snoozed my alarm an extra 10 minutes.
Yep.
So like I don't think I've told a lie in like 2 weeks since I listened to that sermon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's a
So
great example, right? I love that you shared that. I always tell people this, right? If I get invited to something socially, like my friends know I have a no lying policy.
hmm
So it's like I don't care if we made plans and we've had these plans for 2 weeks and it's 20 minutes before we're supposed to meet up and my fiance and I are in conflict and we have something we need to work through. I'm going to send them a voice memo that says, "Hey, Megan and I are in conflict and we're working through something. So we won't be there. We'll catch you guys next time. Love you."
Yeah.
And all of our friends are 100% okay with that because
Wow.
we're okay with it if they need to do that. I'm
That's
not going to
amazing.
make up a story or a lie. And the way that I challenge people in this is check next time you don't want to go to something and you tell that person, I'm really sorry, I can't make it. Lie. You could get in your car and you could drive there. You
Yeah.
can make it. You
Yeah.
don't want to make it, right? So the slight, subtle difference of just saying, really sorry, I won't be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That's telling the truth. That's it.
That's good. Yeah.
We're so programmed to lie in virtually every moment. It's ridiculous. It's really like we
Right.
have a society built on dishonesty.
Honestly, yeah, that's so good. I love those types of friendships where you can be just so real and be like, you know what? I'm tired today. Can we
Yep.
reschedule? Like I have friends like that where I'm just like, yeah, I'm tired and I just want to stay home. I don't feel like talking anymore today.
Exactly. And if you don't have that, if you're listening to this and you don't have that, you have to audit your friend group. You
Yes.
have to audit your friend group and you have to learn boundaries because you have to understand that you teach people how you will allow yourself to be treated.
Yes.
So if I cancel on my friends and I say, oh man, I'm really not feeling good. I'm super tired. I've been working really hard. And like, I think I'm just going to stay home and rest. Can we
Mhm.
reschedule? And they're like, oh, how rude. We're supposed to meet up in 20 minutes. Seriously?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? You didn't come out last time either. What's your problem? Like, I don't want friends like that. That's one
Yeah.
strike. You're out of here. See ya.
Yeah.
you know?
Seriously. Yeah, 100%. Boundaries are a huge, huge, huge,
Mm,
huge thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Is there anything else that if there's anyone listening that has been listening to this conversation, what is like one last thing that you want them to take away from this?
The thing that I always say with podcasts or if you're listening to an Audible book or like whatever is if we spoke anything in this podcast that made you feel something in your body, you got
Mm,
goosebumps or you thought that kind of feels like me or you felt something in your stomach or in your chest, that is your intuition.
yeah.
Do not suppress it. Take action. If you
Mhm,
felt sensations like that in your body listening to this conversation, your body is asking you to change. Your body is asking you to take action. Don't
mm,
ignore that. It's very important.
yeah, that's really good. That's a good point. I love that. Well, I had you choose the Bible verse today, and I love that you chose this one. So he actually chose Matthew 17:20. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there. It will move. Nothing will be impossible for you.
Mm.
So I have a feeling why you chose this Bible verse, but I'd like you to share a little bit of why you chose this.
Yeah, I chose it because humans are an absolute miracle. Like our bodies are literally just adaptation machines. The input that comes in,
Mm-hmm.
our body tries to adapt to it. So when we see things like body fat, I'm storing fat, that's bad, right? It's a bad thing. No, it's not. It's beautiful. It's your body
Mm-hmm.
protecting you. It's trying to save you.
Yeah.
It's trying to be a healthy human being. We're
Mm-hmm.
designed to be a healthy human being. And the reason why I love that verse is because I've gone back and forth for years on the word faith. And I was actually with an amazing man down in Peru at one point. And he said to me, well, Justin, faith is only useful in the presence of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, it clicked in me in a way that faith had never clicked in me before. And it changed the way that I viewed this verse, which is one of my favorite of all time. Because when you really think about it, when he talks about the mustard seed, they're looking at the faith of a mustard seed as size. If you just have a little bit of faith, this thing can work. It
Mm-hmm.
flipped everything on its head for me when I had that conversation. And I started thinking about seeds. An acorn doesn't have faith that it is an oak tree. It
Mm-hmm.
just is an oak
Mm-hmm.
tree. And it can't help but be an oak tree.
Right.
You don't need to have faith to be a healthy human being. It is your birthright to
Mm,
be a healthy human being. And if you think about it, when a tree starts to sprout up, if an acorn is just going to become an oak tree, if we put a bunch of obstacles in the way, the oak tree will bend and turn and twist and change its shape, and it's still going to become an oak tree, but
right.
it's going to look like a sort of strangely formed, kind of messed up version of an oak tree.
Mhm.
And that's where people find themselves. There are all these
Mm,
incredible obstacles that we're putting in the way of our health and wellness. And then when our body bends and twists and changes to try to work its way around these obstacles, we get mad at our bodies. There's something wrong with me. I am the problem. My body is messed up. But it's not. The same way an acorn is an oak tree, you are a healthy human being. A healthy human is there. And you don't have to have faith that you're a healthy human because it's what you're designed to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. That makes so much sense. That's so good. Yeah. I love that. So I'm so happy that you came and you shared all of your wisdom and knowledge with us. And you truly have so much wisdom. Like, we probably could have talked for another like 3 days.
I would love to.
Well, we'll have to have you back on.
Sure.
For
Yeah.
real.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to reach out to him, all of his links will be posted in the show notes, his Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You can get a hold of him any which way. And yes, if you love this episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Be sure to share it with a family member you know that may be struggling with this, any sort of confidence, any sort of diet culture, anyone who you feel as if they're struggling with this and could use this. Definitely share it with them, because I know that it's going to be useful for so many people. And don't forget to take care of yourself, because when you're not your best self, you can't help others become their best selves as well. And yes, Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.